On this episode, we are talking with Mike Kivisto, and he has quite the past. Well, I guess that doesn't sound great, but we're going to go with it. Yes, he has quite the work history, and I'm just going to read off some of the things that he's done. He is currently with a company called Contentful, which is a German company that has a Denver office where Mike is based, and he is a senior engineer leader. Prior to that, he was with Twitter, where he was a senior engineer leader, and then he was at an AI startup called Unsupervised, and he was in head engineer there, and then prior to that, he was a head engineer at another company. So a lot of engineering, a lot of leadership in Mike's past. So we're going to dive into this conversation, and he's got some really good insights that I think you're going to really pull out about psychological safety, which is kind of a new term for me, but once he explains it, I think you'll understand it. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we have the pleasure of talking to Mike Kivisto, who I've known for a very long time, and he's going to talk to us about his leadership positions over the past several years and kind of what that looked like for him being in the tech industry. Mike, thanks for being with me today. I also know that you just came from a backcountry backpacking trip. So how was that for you? I know you love the backcountry.
Yeah, I do. It's really privileged to live here in Colorado where we have access to such beautiful places. So yeah, I went with a friend, annual trip. We hiked for about 28 miles over 3 days
Mm.
and climbed up to 12,500 feet and spent 3 nights on a beautiful alpine lake here in Colorado, just about 45 minutes from my house. So yeah, great adventure. It's really nice to get out there and clear your mind, especially when you're managing these people and in your day-to-day. So
Would
so
it
it's
be,
good to get out there and with nothing to think about.
yeah, would it be all right if I rolled some B-roll pictures of you on your trip? Because you sent me some off camera. Would
Yeah,
that be all right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, of
Just
course.
for proof, that people really believe,
Yep.
oh yeah, he really did
Yeah,
that.
you
He's
really did it.
legit.
Yep. Yes. Yes, no problem.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. Let's jump right in. First question, do you have a leadership style that you subscribe to or that you use the most with your people?
Yes, I would be called most people who observe like the style that I use would classify it as servant leadership. Just kind of meaning that I'm not there for like the power of the position, but
Mm,
rather to support people. So my philosophy is like you hire experts, you hire excellent, driven people, skilled people, and then you get out of their way and
mm,
you support them and you let them go. Because if you hire someone who's kind of passionate about something, you don't need to manage them that much. You can just kind of support them because they're going to go after it. Go after the task at hand. So, yeah, I would. Most people would call my style servant leadership.
yeah. It's funny that you say that because you're the fourth interview I've done in probably 14 days, and you are the fourth leader who have said servant leadership. That's what
Oh,
I
really?
do. Yeah.
Okay.
Like everybody has done that. And I've had an engineer, I've had somebody from the hospitality industry, and I've had a CEO, and they've all said the same thing, servant leadership.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I think it's kind of a little more modern, coming out of the fear based like screaming at people
mhm.
style or whatever. I think it's a little more of a maybe a modern approach to it.
Yeah, and it probably builds team cohesion as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really I think that's what it's about is to me is that a team uh, I'm going to get a little philosophical here, but a team to me is a band. Okay, so not everybody can be the lead singer. Not everybody's Mick Jagger,
Mm,
but you don't need like if the Rolling Stones had five Mick Jaggers, they're not the Rolling Stones. They're
right.
Mick Jagger, right? So you need somebody to play bass, and maybe that's not the sexiest position or whatever instrument, or you don't get the notoriety or whatever, but it's needed. And
Hmm.
so I think a team is kind of about hiring people who are passionate about those, say, five roles: playing the drums, playing the bass, playing the guitar, singing, and then playing the um, rhythm guitar, whatever it is. But I think of a software team as kind of like the same thing. You hire people who want to do these certain things, and then if you support them, um, it kind of and then they can be themselves and everything. It's
Right.
and play that bass or whatever, and they don't have to feel the pressure like I have to be Mick Jagger. It's like, no, you don't. We already have a Mick Jagger. So
Yeah.
I think it creates that sense of team and that cohesion, and just like a great band, that once they're all playing together, it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And I like your analogy of, or not your analogy, but what you say about you hire the right people and then you get out of their way.
Yep.
Like if you're hiring a rock star, let them be the rock star and
Let
just
them be the rock
support them.
star. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't tell Mick how to sing.
Right.
Let him sing.
Right. Because that you hired Mick to sing, so let him
You
sing,
hired
right?
Mick to sing. Don't go do Mick's job. That's not. Don't get up there and grab the microphone from him. Let him sing.
Yeah. Because so let's take that a little further down the rabbit hole. Because if you get up and take Mick's mic, then what happens? The
Yeah.
band
Then
starts to
Mick.
fall apart, right?
Yes. Yeah. And then he feels micromanaged. He feels like belittled. He doesn't feel respected. And then you're gonna get a disgruntled employee, and they're just not going to perform the same way. They're going to be afraid that they're going to be singing a song, and then you're going to come and just take the mic, and who likes,
Yeah.
you're not going to be free. You're not going to work. You're not going to practice your craft that way.
Yeah. So, as the leader of a team that you've got
Mhm.
all these, kind of moving parts going at once, how do you potentially deal with toxic environment or toxic employees?
Yeah, that's great, and that happens. Sometimes, unfortunately, but it really, just if I can take just a step back real
Yeah.
quick on that, is that it starts with hiring, right? So you
Mm,
got to have a very vigorous, thorough hiring process to try to vet those people out. So I even have questions that I ask to try to filter out toxic people. So just as an example,
I was just
uh,
going to ask you for an example.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the CEO of GoGo, where I worked previously to that unsupervised place I was telling you, that's where I learned the longest and I got the most management training. But I asked him, I'm like, how do you filter out really negative, toxic people? And the question he gave me was, in an interview, ask them, tell me at a time at your last job where you were treated unfairly. And what
Mm,
it does, and so someone non-toxic will say, oh yeah, I had this review that I didn't quite agree with, but my boss and I, we talked about it, and we found ways I could improve, and I gave him some feedback, and we came together and got better.
mm,
A toxic employee is going to be like, oh, let me tell you what they did to me. They screwed me. They were out to
mm.
get me. They'll go on and on. If you just like give them some rope,
Yeah. Yeah.
they will go for it. And then, you could just say, hey, thank you for that. And, nice talking to you. And then tell recruiting to, pass on those folks. So anyway, starting with hiring, but, when you're a leader, you don't always get to hire everybody. So you may inherit a team, and
Mm, yes.
um, so you may have to manage a whole bunch of people that you didn't hire, you had no chance to, or maybe you hired poorly. It can happen. And that toxic person, I mean, you first give them a chance you have to give them the feedback. The thing to me in a servant leadership is you have to give feedback, like good and the bad.
Hmm.
And so you talk
How,
to this person, say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you're probably leading right into it right now, but how do you lead into those conversations when you have to give the negative or the adjusting feedback?
I think one of the biggest ones is you don't come out attacking. You kind of you try to take the emotion out of it, and you just kind of say something you observed. It's kind of because you don't want to come in and like attack somebody, but you just have a one-on-one with someone or something and say, hey, I had some concerns. Like we were in that meeting, and Sheila had an idea and you told her it was stupid. And, I just, how did, how did that come about? Like, what did you think of that? And what did so you give the facts. Here's what I
Right.
observed.
Right.
And then you just say, give me your perspective, because people, they can have a bad day. Something can be going on at home. They could be sick. There can be a
Mm,
million reasons that somebody behaves really poorly. And so if I see it, I try to bring somebody in and say, hey, this is what I observed, and try to get their perspective on it. Sometimes somebody needs a week off. It's like, hey, why don't you
yeah.
take a week stuff. You've been nose to the grindstone. You've been knocking out code. Why don't you just take a little space? Go up to where I went backcountry camping, clear your head. So, but
I
anyways,
walked 28 miles to see my manager back here.
yeah, yeah, that'd be. Oh my gosh, you're here too.
Yeah.
No, but I think you give people a chance to like talk about it. But then if it keeps recurring, then you got to talk to people and say, hey, you know what? This is our culture. This is what we expect. We expect collaboration. We expect, you know, um, people helping each other out. We want psychological safety in this team, and we've seen multiple things. I've talked to you several times, and this behavior keeps occurring. Man, you really need to clean this up, or and what we have here, probably some of the other leaders you've talked to, you can have a thing called a performance plan, which is where someone you give them concrete steps that they have to improve on and stuff, or else they're let go. Right. So it's just you have to give the feedback. You have to not be afraid to do it, because the problem is if you don't address the toxicity of a person, you're going to lose your good people. Right. Because they're going to be like, why am I putting up with this stuff? I can go get a job anywhere. This manager's not doing anything. And then you're going to be left with just the toxic people. And then you're in trouble as a manager. So,
right. Because you've got to pick up the pieces.
You have to address it. Yeah. Some people people get scared of addressing that stuff, but you absolutely, you have to do it. In fact, I got this one book here. This is a good one. Maybe other people have talked to you about it, but this Crucial Conversation.
Yeah.
Really good book on, because it's one of the harder things of management is having those confrontational conversations, because, as human beings, we typically want to avoid confrontation. So, but it's part of the job. So.
But I think going back to your original statement about hiring, if you can hire well and vet that process really well, then you're probably going to find people who are moldable and coachable, and you're not going to have the people who are in it for the drama or being toxic or anything like that. So.
Yes. Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, I put a huge emphasis on hiring, because I've been fortunate here. As I said, I was the first engineering leader in Denver for Contentful, my current company, and I was able to hire literally everyone. So it's been
that's great.
Yeah, and we haven't had I haven't hired some wood to knock on. Not hired a single toxic person yet, and I've hired 25 people. So that's a pretty good. But I don't do it alone, of course, right? Like there's a team of us who are hiring people. So, but
how important is it for you to be part of that hiring process?
Critical, because I have things that I really look for. I look for drive, because you can't teach that. You cannot teach someone to have drive, in my opinion. Maybe you can with children or something, but I'm not managing a bunch of children here, but I always want to see if people have that go for it attitude. Because you cannot force someone to do that, but a lot of people are just naturally that way. So I like to look for that. I like to look for collaboration, positivity. So yeah, it's really important for me. I wouldn't ever want to hire someone having never met them. Like it just wouldn't be acceptable to me. Not that I really delegate and trust other people, but I do want to be part of. I've had someone I've really liked before, multiple people, where my team said this person's awful, and then it's like, okay, because I'm not gonna. If my folks, my other teammates are interviewing, part of the interviewing cycle, and then I try to veto and say, no, we shall hire this person, and I don't care what your opinion is, then that's kind of bad right from the start. So it's definitely a team. It's a team sport, hiring, but I definitely want to have a role in it.
Yeah. And I mean, your company's growing, and you may grow to the point where you don't get to sit in on the hiring. Is that a potential possibility for you in the future? Or is that something you would just make time for because, like, hey, I need to do that?
Yeah, I would probably make time. And then, my next role here would be this director of software engineering. And I already have a plan to when I get to that role, hopefully in the next year. I already have a plan to promote two of my folks to managers, and then
Mm,
they would do the hiring. But I would still probably do maybe like the very final
mm,
interview or something to kick the tires on somebody or something. But like if I started not trusting them to to do that kind of hiring, then again, it's hire good people and get out of their way. So if I bring them in and promote them to manager, I should get out of their way. But yeah,
yeah.
we'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I think I would probably still probably want to just kick the tires on each person
Yeah.
for a while, at least until they can prove that
Yeah.
because they're both these guys will be new managers. So at least until they can show that they know how to hire and vet
Yeah,
people.
I mean, and you can be there as kind of like the training wheels for the first
Sure.
couple, just to see
Yep.
if you're like, oh man, wow, these guys really got it. I'm just going to get out
Yep.
of the way, or
Yep.
I'm going to sit on a few more just because they need it and they need me there with them.
Right.
So, let me switch gears a little bit, and
Huh?
I'm going to give a little bit of your backstory because you are probably the most well-traveled human being that I personally know. So a little backstory on Mike is years ago, he quit his corporate job and went on a trip around the world for what was it, a year?
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yep, worked,
Wow.
saved, and went just around the world for 2.5 years. And how many countries were you in? Do you remember?
I mean, I on that trip I went to 40, but like yeah, total I've been to 55 countries.
And then you were just in Germany for the World Cup?
The Euro Cup, yeah.
Euro Cup,
So
I'm sorry.
and no, it's all right. Spain won. I was very happy. So
Yep. You lived in Spain for a while.
yep, with your sister.
Yeah. All right. Full disclosure, Mike is my brother-in-law.
Oh, did we not know that? Sorry.
Well, that's all
Uh,
right. It's okay. So my nieces are probably hiding behind this somewhere. But anyways,
no.
this is still good conversation, Mike. Like I'm not calling you because you're my brother-in-law. I'm calling you because like you have some really great nuggets of wisdom and a lot of leadership
Thank
experience.
you.
So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, kind of on the note of you being such a world traveler and
Mhm.
living around the world and doing all this other stuff, you and I have had conversation in the past about how ethnically diverse the Denver area where you live is and the teams that you've managed have been on. Um,
Mhm.
Diverse, whereas like there's not a dominant culture in the
Mhm.
team, including yourself.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage different cultures when you're different and everybody on the team is different?
Yeah.
How do you keep
Yeah.
that team cohesive?
Yeah. And I will say that like I mean Denver there's a lot of very specific like tech folks here from other cultures, but historically Denver's not the most diverse place, but like it within the tech industry it's
Right.
quite
Yes.
quite diverse. So um
And that's your space.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's in my space. And like Twitter, I was like when I was at Twitter, I was in the Boulder office here in Colorado, and it was incredibly diverse. And I was often a minority in large meetings, and that was cool. I mean, the biggest thing, I mean, the reason I went around the world is just because I'm interested in
Hmm.
so many other cultures, and so I'm just naturally interested in it. So I don't feel I don't feel repelled from new cultures or new ways of thinking or whatever. I gravitate towards it, and so it helps with my industry, which has so many people from all these different cultures that I just naturally gravitate towards that.
Mm.
But what's cool for me is I've usually been in the country of like someone that I hire or work with, and um, so I can typically sit and talk about maybe even their hometown and everything. So just that's been
Yeah.
fun. But just even having the curiosity. My girls have been to Ethiopian restaurants with one of my Ethiopian employees, and we went with him, and we are the only non-Ethiopians in the restaurant. And just that curiosity of
Hmm.
that culture, and then people feel open to you, and they're going to be a little more let drop some of their guard down or whatever if
Yeah.
they see that you're embracing and interested in their culture, because otherwise they might think it's a detriment But if you treat it as an asset and let them know that it's an asset, then they're going to feel more comfortable, and it's more
Yeah.
part of that team cohesion, and again, that band thing, and hey, we're not all the same, and you're good at that, and you're not so good at that. You're good at this. You're not so good at this, and all of that. Bringing that together is what I think makes great teams. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just
So,
having an openness to the differences and
yeah.
and celebrating them rather than ridiculing them maybe.
Right. Because as we sit here as two Caucasian men having a conversation, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if if I was from, I know in the tech industry there's a lot of people from Asia, and if I was the new person from Asia on this tech team, and here's my new Caucasian boss, and
Yep.
he's like, "So where are you from?" And I say some city, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I've been there."
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Really?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it was funny.
Yeah.
I did a video a couple weeks ago about how to connect with other cultures, not just
Mhm.
white people connecting with other colored people, but any culture. And one of
Sure.
the things, like I use a story, we have some Korean missionaries at our church that have come by every now and again. And so I have learned how to say a formal greeting in Korean. And so every time I
Excellent.
see them, I bow and then I say this
Nice.
formal greeting to them.
Oh,
And
wow.
they just light up and they're like, "Oh, Todd, come over here." Da, 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 da. And we just talk and we have a good time. And
That's
when I
great.
first started doing that, some of the people at church were like, "What is Todd doing?" And I'm like, "I'm making a connection, is what I'm
Absolutely.
doing.
Yes.
I'm making a connection because now look at their faces every
Yeah.
time they come in here."
Right.
And, I gave the story, if I were to move to Spain and there
Yeah.
was somebody from Spain who went out of their way to learn an English phrase to make me feel
Mhm.
comfortable every time they saw me at work, that would
Yeah.
really endear me to that person. So,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think exactly what you're talking about, building that team
Yeah.
environment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it would make you feel welcome. It would make you feel, and then it would make you want to start sharing some of these
Oh
things
yeah.
because you're going to have these perspectives. You're going to have this experience that they don't have. And then if you're sharing it, it makes the team stronger. So, yeah, I think if you make it a safe space, like other the folks you've interviewed have probably talked about psychological safety, but to me, that's like a critical element of psychological safety. It's like the thing I care about the most is that.
You're the first person to bring that phrase up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. If you
But
want to
it's
talk
just
about
like
that for a second, what exactly is psychological safety?
psychological safety is making it a space where you can be yourself. That
Mm,
if I have to like give you the one sentence thing,
yeah.
that is what it is. And so you do not have to know everything. You don't have to be the expert in absolutely everything. You are here. We hired you because you have this strength, you have this drive, like you're really good at this particular skill or something like that. So bring it, but bring your
Hmm.
weaknesses too, bring the things that you're not good at.
Do you
Be
encourage
yourself.
your people to be open about their weaknesses?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. And the way you do that is like you admit your own. Is like
Mm,
so you as the leader, in my opinion, you are setting the tone for the whole team. So
hmm.
the way I do it is I'm very self-deprecating in my meetings, or I'll be like, oh man, I just like, I'll even maybe I'll go a little extreme sometimes, but I'll be like, hey, I'm a complete idiot. Can you explain that to me? Like just being vulnerable, right? Like, and when they
Yes.
see me being vulnerable, um, they're not going to be afraid to be vulnerable too. So because like whenever you raise your hand and you say, "Hey, what does that acronym mean?" I don't know what that means. If you're in a room of 50 people and you raise your hand to the speaker and you say, "Hey, I don't know what this acronym means." There's 30 people in the room who don't know what it means either, but
Right.
they're afraid to raise their hand because they don't want to look dumb, and so that's kind of psychological safety. Hey, and we all practice it. I know you used to be a principal and
Assistant principal. Yep.
assistant principal, and so the teachers would always say that there's no dumb questions. That's a phrase that someone who's trying to create psychological safety says. There are no dumb
Hmm.
questions, meaning ask it, be vulnerable, it's okay.
Yeah.
And that makes people, because nobody knows everything and people have weaknesses and they are terrible at certain things and stuff. And so it's just, okay, hey, we're all terrible at some things. So let's not
Right.
pretend that, we all know everything and stuff. So if you invite that, the vulnerability and everything, that is psychological safety.
Okay. That's excellent. Yeah, yeah. You're the first
Yeah.
leader that I've interviewed. And I mean, I haven't had a ton to interview yet, but you're the first one who's brought that up specifically about psychological safety.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
switch
table
gears.
stakes for me. Like, it's table stakes. It's got to be there.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. I'd like to ask you, who is the best leader that you've ever worked for and why were they the best?
The best leader I've ever worked for. Why were they the best? I think it's my current boss
Mm,
at Contentful. So there is a VP of engineering who hired me, and he uh, he does a lot of the things that I've been talking about here, and one of the biggest ones is creating that. He has this humility, and he creates that psychologically safe environment and everything.
mm,
And for me, in particular, like I don't know, I don't want to get too personal here in this interview and everything, but this is what big thing that shaped me as like a leader and as a person was, having a dad who disparaged me a lot, who
mm,
made fun of me, who called me names, really horrible stuff that I cannot even fathom doing as a parent myself. But what that makes me is I'm a little vulnerable, particularly with men in power. So I can get really sensitive to that, right? I
mm,
can get really sensitive to like harsh criticism from men in power. So I always had that with like coaches. I played soccer growing up, and I would bristle under like some real criticism and stuff. And I think it was because as a little boy I was unfortunately disparaged a lot by my own dad. So
mm. Yeah.
um, sorry if that's too personal, but it's
No, this is about you and
yeah,
learning. And
yeah,
and people are going to watch this and hear your story and learn from you. So, I mean,
okay.
no, have at it. That was great.
Yep. Yep. And but just, and so that's kind of a part of my like psychological safety is I know that we all have something, hopefully not quite like that, but we have
Yeah.
something like that. And so we come to work with vulnerabilities. And then if we say, hey, that's okay, then you're going to get the best of people, right? Like
Right.
they're going to uncork, and then they're going to be like, here's all the goodness, because when someone feels like free, uh and I mean, it's a workplace, we got to get work done.
Hmm.
It's not like, oh, just come do whatever you want, it's not that, but it's like, come with your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, we all have them, and it's okay, right? So anyways, for me, like I told my boss, like when I first met him and started working there, I'm like, hey man, if like you're yelling at me, or you're like, you call me stupid or something, I am going to it's going to be hard for me and everything. But he's not like that at all. He's like very much vulnerable, makes his own mistakes, admits them, talks openly about them. He has a
Yeah.
style where it's like you can speak up and give your ideas, and they're respected and everything. Not that every one of your ideas is perfect and implemented or whatever, but like you don't feel like an idiot for saying something like, hey, what
Right.
about this, and some of the best ideas in software or any industry they can come from anywhere. It can be the person who's like, cleaning the coffee machine might say, hey, did you ever think about doing this? It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
so when you create that environment where people feel free to make mistakes and everything, then then you get the best of them. And so I think my boss has been, for me, he's been really good, because I feel really I feel like myself here
Mm.
at Contentful, because he kind of creates that environment.
Yeah, he's created an environment for you to flourish. And that's what
Yeah, I
leaders are
think so.
supposed to do. They're
Yes.
not supposed
Yeah.
to ram that round peg into the square hole or however
Yep.
that phrase goes,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
to prepare the soil and put down the fertilizer and then you're the
Right.
seed that they
Yep.
put in there and then watch you grow and flourish.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep. So
What
yeah,
is
he's a great leader. I really like him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What is one leadership experience that you've learned the most from in your life,
Oh,
or that taught you the greatest lesson? And that could be good or bad.
hmm I we did a it's a training, so I don't know. Maybe I'm taking the easy way out here a little bit. I
Well, that's
because
why
I
we do trainings, so we
yeah,
learn.
yeah. No, but this training was great, and this is another one that
Yeah.
another phrase I'm curious if other people have mentioned it is situational leadership.
No.
So I did a training on situational leadership, and it's absolutely fantastic. It was it was about how you have to adapt your approach based on the situation and then the person who's executing it. So
Mm-hmm.
let's give an example. Todd, do you know anything about stained glass windows, like creating them?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. So now let's imagine we have a company, and for some reason, one of the things we do is make stained glass windows. Now, if you come into the office, I'm like, hey, Todd, I got a job for you. And you're like this go-getter, you're
Yeah.
fresh out of college or something, you're ready to go, you're like so excited, you're working at the ABC company. And I'm like, okay, man, you're going to make a stained glass window. Here are your supplies. Tell me when you're done. Right,
Exactly.
right. So the situation was we needed to have a stained glass window built. I brought in this energetic, oh, Todd's smart. Todd's energetic. I'm going to put him on this. And then I don't tell you anything. I don't give you any direction. I just point you to the materials. And then I say, go, man. You are going to probably quit.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
now let's say now let's play a different role where you are you're Michelangelo. You are a stained glass. I don't know if you ever did stained glass, but you know my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Let's say you've done it a billion times, right? So now you come into my office. Hey, Todd, I got a task for you. You're going to make a stained glass window and you know every single thing
Yeah.
about it. Now let's picture I say, okay, so now you've got some glass. And what we want to do is we want to take these paints over here and we want to get the paints onto the glass. And then, you're going to create. And so I start going in and telling you every detail. You're going to be
Yeah.
like, just let me do it,
Yeah,
man.
Mike, I got it. Come on.
I got it. I got it. Just let me go. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, no. So right here, we want red. And so red, you have to be careful because it can drip a little and you're just like, oh my God. And now you're going to quit.
For the opposite reason.
For the opposite
Yeah.
reason. And so
Yeah.
situational leadership is this awesome training I had, and we did a workshop where we did kind of what you and I just did here,
Mm-hmm.
where you purposely you had one tool, and that was over explaining everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now for the intern coming in who has never done stained glass before, it worked really well, and you were like, I'm the greatest leader in the world.
Right.
But then you had 5 people on your team, and they all had varying levels of being able to
Mm-hmm.
do stained glass. But you did the same thing to all 5 of them. One person loved you, and the other 5 hated you.
Right.
And
Right.
so what it was is he was teaching you know the situation and adapt your leadership to the situation, because otherwise you'll either leave people undertrained, you'll leave them overtrained, you'll frustrate almost everybody if
Yeah.
you. It's that old thing, like if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yep. Yep.
So
I did a video a
situational
couple,
leadership was awesome.
yeah, I did a video a couple weeks ago about know your people. Like
Yes. Yep.
just know your people and not just
Absolutely.
know their skill sets for work, but
Mhm.
know what's going on in their home lives as well. I had a story from back when I was teaching, and I had a young lady I taught sixth grade, and she was just a rock star in my class. And then she came in Monday morning and was different. Just
Yeah.
she bristled at everything. She was not herself. And I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. And that went on for like a couple days. And finally I started asking around to like the administration and found out that her older brother, who had been involved in some drug trafficking, was staying the weekend at her house, and he typically didn't do that. Well, SWAT team followed him there, kicked in the door, and because she was tall, they thought she was an adult, and they put
Wow.
her on the floor, pointed guns at her, and
Oh
she was
my
put in
gosh.
handcuffs because she looked like an adult in this house where they were trying to arrest her brother who was dealing drugs.
Wow.
And then it was like, oh my gosh, and I didn't know this for 3 days.
Right.
And so I pulled her aside and I was like, hey, we don't have to talk about it, but I know what's going on. I'm going to give you some grace. I want you to know that I know, so that if you need anything, I'm here for you. And
Right.
that
Right.
speaks directly to your point about being situationally aware and knowing the situation, what's going on with your people. So,
Yep. Yep. And and we need a lot of grace in the workspace. A lot of people have a lot of stuff going on. There's a
yeah,
whole you get people for 8 hours a day. There's 16 hours that you don't see them, and a lot
right.
happens in those 16 hours. And so yeah, I always try to learn the situation. If somebody seems off. Like I said, when we were talking about the toxic behavior
Mm-hmm.
thing, I try to get to I don't come in like accusing and like you're a bad person and you did this. It's kind of like, hey, tell me what's going on. I saw
Right.
something. So because we have a lot of a lot, we all have lives outside of the office and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's important to know that and to care about it too, because even if you show the care and ask the question, just that can go a long way.
Yeah, yeah. It's been interesting. This is being filmed during kind of the last part of the Olympics, and to hear some of the stories of the athletes that are coming out during the Olympics about, you know, they worked for, 16 hours a day doing some menial job, and now they're standing receiving a gold medal for their country. And
Yeah.
it's what they had to do to get where they needed to be. But man, like if you had known that, you'd been like, man, they're going to go to the Olympics and they're going to win a gold medal. Wow. There's people a lot mentally tougher than me because I would have been like, forget it. I'm done. I quit. You can keep your gold medals. I don't like gold anyways. I'm more of a silver guy. But but anyways, Mike, I know your time is short. I know you have an appointment that you have to get to. Any final words of wisdom you want to bestow on us and my audience, or should we just wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would say is that it's not for everybody, and that's okay
Mm,
too, right? Like just try to get into leadership. I think, you were saying know your people, and that's very
hmm.
smart, but a big thing is know yourself too, right?
Yeah.
So I got into this because I was a software engineer. I always like to say and it's true, my dad was an engineer and my mom was a social worker. And so being a manager is kind of a manager of a engineering team is a combination of those because you're kind of half psychologist and half engineer,
Hmm.
and not everybody's cut out for that. Just because you're a great individual contributor, as we say, maybe a great engineer, it doesn't mean you're going to be a great manager, but that's okay because we always need people with hands on keyboard doing the work,
Yeah.
um, whatever the work is. But I would only get into leadership if like you truly care about people succeeding, you care about their careers, you care about people having fulfillment in what they
Mm,
do. And if that motivates you, if that drives you, then
yeah.
leadership may be something for you. But I think it's something to get into for kind of the right reasons, not like just a bigger paycheck or
Right.
something, but because you truly I think you want to embrace that servant leadership, and if that's something that's appealing to you, then you know maybe leadership is the path for you.
Mike, I could not have said that better myself. That's great. Yeah. I think a lot of people go into it for the power and the paycheck,
Yeah.
and it's not. It's about people, that's the name of my company back here, People First.
Oh, is
Pe
that what it is?
yeah,
Cool. Nice.
people first coaching and consulting, because people have to be first. Just like you said, you can't put together a widget if you don't have any widget putter togethers.
Right. Yeah.
You need the people. You need the people. Every company, business, whatever needs the people. And if you can't do people well,
Right.
you're going to be by yourself doing whatever it is. So,
Absolutely. Yep. Show that respect. Find people with the skills. Give them respect. Give them some space. And then you barely even have to manage them after that.
yeah. Well, Mike, thank you for the conversation. Very insightful. I like your examples, your experience, some things I learned about you. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Great stuff. Great stuff. Because
Absolutely.
I did have another computer engineer guy that I interviewed last week, and he again does servant leadership, but has some differences. Not bad
Okay.
differences, just differences.
Okay.
So leads
Yeah.
differently, and yeah. So, but thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate your time, and I enjoy soccer practice.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you talking to me too. It's fun to talk about. Really appreciate it. Hopefully it was somewhat insightful to folks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And maybe this one will go viral.
Awesome. All right,
All right,
man.
man.
We'll talk to you.
Take
See
care.
you. Yeah. Bye bye.